MAHLE at the IAA Mobility 2021 here at the Open Space in Munich at the Königsplatz. My name is Lisa Hofmann and I'm very happy to be your host for the next 5 days. We are going to have very interesting expert talks here at our MAHLE booth at the IAA. Today's topic is going to be sustainable mobility and how MAHLE contributes to CO2 neutral transport. Therefore, I'm going to have an expert by my side. I want to give a warm welcome to Dr. Martin Berger. You're the Vice President Corporate Research and Advanced Engineering. Nice to have you here. How are you doing, Martin?
Hi, Lisa. Nice to be here.
Very nice.
I'm doing fine. I'm enjoying the days. Again, to be in touch with people, with customers, with friends, with the industry. It's a pleasure to be here.
But in this year, it's totally different at the IAA because we've got a new location, we've got new formats, and we've got new exhibition content. So we see bicycles, we see scooters, but we also see the car and its associated technology, which has developed over the time. But it's all about environment and electromobility. So my question is, how does that fit in with an automotive supplier like MAHLE?
Well, MAHLE is faced with what we call the transformation of individual and sustainable mobility, towards sustainable mobility, and you better be a part of it. So, well, our legacy is the combustion engine for sure, but we're already deeply into our way to sustainable mobility. Be it electric mobility, pure electric mobility, be it other forms of CO2 neutral or CO2 free mobility and or transport.
But let's get more into details. So with which innovation is MAHLE helping the car to make its contribution regarding climate protection actually?
Well, it's a lot of components in traditional cars, but also in this kind of new cars that basically stay the same. I'm talking about thermal management, for example. Yeah, you've got heat rejectors, radiators. You've got HVACs, which means heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems within a car. They stay the same, or the requirements to them stay the same. The challenges behind, if the propulsion system changes, differ a little bit. So that's one field we're operating in. Second is all kinds of mechatronics. We've got an example here. We're going to talk later about that. But all kinds of electric motors, basically. You've got lots of electric motors in every car. Yeah, actuators, basically, that are giving you, as a driver or as a passenger, certain functions. Yeah, it's not just traction motors, but there's a lot beyond that, and we call that our mechatronics content, our mechatronics product.
But let's just talk about that product over here, the magnet-free e-motor. What does it mean?
Look, e-motors do need what the engineers call an excitation. That means you need a pack of magnets on your rotating part of such a motor. And normally these magnets are permanent magnets. Means they are made of so-called rare earth materials, and they are sourced basically from one single Asian country. Yeah, I mean in times like ours now, where we've got a shortage of semiconductors. Everyone may have heard of it already. It is very, very important to be independent from single sources, to be sustainable, and rare earth materials are not that sustainable as they should be. So it is a kind of a challenge, or it was a challenge, to find another way and maybe an approach to even replacing them, yeah, or make them redundant. And this is the result of it. We basically, instead of the rare earth magnets, we do use electric magnets, yeah, made of copper windings, basically. And yeah, that's what is the characteristic of what forms the characteristics of such an e-motor. Yeah, well, the technology itself is not brand new, but it has had a drawback over time, which is brushes, basically to bring some electric current to the rotating part. Yeah? And that's been the drawback for almost 100 years. Effectively, I think this motor was even invented in this city here. And yeah, it was carrying the drawback all along the way through history. And therefore, it was not really suitable for individual mobility requirements. And yeah, well, you asked about innovation. We've made these brushes redundant or useless by replacing them with a so-called contactless transmitter. So the energy to the rotating part is transmitted wireless, contactless, and therefore wear-free. And here we go. Here is the solution.
So just to fully understand it, what are the most important advantages of it?
It has no rare earth materials in it, and thus it's much more sustainable than a motor carrying these. And its efficiency is at least as good as in other types of technology. Well, to my view, it's a kind of a breakthrough.
So it's a very complex invention, actually, and I noticed there are many individual innovative components. So can you just describe the development process of something like this?
Well, generally with electric motors, you've got tons of degrees of freedom. Yeah, you could make it larger, you could make it smaller, you could use more or less windings, more or less current, more or less power, whatever. You've got many degrees of freedom, and depending on your requirements coming from the vehicle, what you want to basically what you want to achieve with this motor, there is an optimum. But with such a big amount of degrees of freedom, it's not easy to find, and therefore we are using a kind of an automated development process that helps you to find this optimum and gives you the product that you are looking for, basically, but fully automated.
So how much know-how do you need to develop it, and where do you get it from?
Well, you need classical disciplines like mechanical design, but also electromechanical design. Yeah, and it's a big variety of engineering disciplines, if you want. We've had some in-house coming from our legacy, from, let's say, metallic products. And we had to hire and to basically train people on these new disciplines I mentioned before. Everything that is basically electric was, partly it was in-house, but partly we needed to basically find and train people. But that's what transformation is all about.
Yeah, sure. That's so interesting, actually. But I guess we talked a lot about the drive right now, and it's not MAHLE's only strength when it comes to e-mobility, right? There's some more.
Yeah, as I said before, this is a traction drive motor. This is the one that basically propels the vehicle. But there is lots. I said before, there's lots of other motors. Yeah, could be window opener motors. It could be any kind of actuators in there. Pumps for fluids that are required to cool such a motor, for example. Yeah, there's lots of other applications where electric energy is transformed in mechanical energy. That's one field, and I mentioned the other one, the other big field that is always the same for traditional propulsion systems, but also for modern propulsion systems, and that's thermal management. So you need to manage the energy, the thermal energy on board of such a vehicle. And this becomes even more important when we're talking about electric vehicles. Why is that? Because the only source that you've got is the battery. The only source of energy is the battery. And what is a battery about? It's about range. Yeah, and if you don't want to lose range, you better manage the waste of energy close to zero. And that's what thermal management is all about.
You've mentioned the cooling now, and you've mentioned the battery, and the temperature is very important when it comes to electric vehicles. So what does MAHLE offer concerning that?
Well, you mentioned the battery. It is very important to make the battery, let's say, feel well. Yeah, have a constant temperature that's somewhere in between 30 and 40 degrees, for example. But individual mobility is not always happening when the temperature is right. So you have to cool or even warm it up in wintertime for a so-called cold start. And making a battery feel well means bring it to a temperature where it feels well, I said 30 to 40 degrees, as quick as possible, yeah, and cool it when it comes to thermal stress for a battery. When is that? If you accelerate quickly, so if you take out power and energy in a very quick or short time, yeah, or if you charge the battery. So managing these high stress situations for the battery is, let's say, the core of thermal management for such components.
And for these high stress situations, you use immersion cooling, right?
Exactly.
Can you explain what is immersion cooling?
It is an approach to basically get closer to the source of heat. Battery cells normally, under stress, cause more or less heat, yeah, and the heat needs to be rejected into a cooling circuit. And immersion cooling is an approach to get closer to this source of energy, to get closer to the cell, without having any thermal resistances or thermal bridges in between. So the closer I get to the heat source, the better it is, and the better I can, yeah, manage the batteries well feeling and well behaving. Yeah, and that's why immersion cooling is, as the word says, the cells are in the liquid. So are they immersed in the liquid and basically reject the heat directly into a liquid that is then brought to the outside of a battery, and finally the heat is rejected to the outside air.
So can you just say it again in very easy and short words? What are the special advantages of immersion cooling?
You are closer to the heat source, yeah, and therefore you can charge faster and you can go faster, in simple words.
Perfect, that's how I need it. Let's just talk about charging a little bit. Here too, MAHLE is broadly positioned with various products, right? Can you give us some examples?
Well, it's basically two directions. One is what we call charge big, yeah, which is charge as fast as needed philosophy. You basically charge your vehicle when it's parked, like at the airport or at work, so you've got enough time, so to say. And the other approach is strongly linked to what we've been talking about, to immersion cooling. Give the battery a little bit more stress because it can stand the stress and charge fast. That's it.
Perfect. So we've been talking about the battery electric car now the whole time, but is that the only way to CO2 neutral and climate friendly mobility?
Well, we do believe that electric mobility is a very, very important piece of the jigsaw, so to say. But there is other approaches. There are a wide variety of approaches that need to be used. All of them need to be used and made use of to achieve CO2 neutral transport and mobility. Yeah, it is simply not enough to just bet on electric vehicles.
But what are the challenges for a supplier like MAHLE? And I guess it's the perfect question for you. What are the challenges for you as head of research concerning that?
Well, to summarize it in very simple words, the challenge is always the same. You got to have the right products for your customers. So the task is to follow the directions of your customers. And let's say the approaches are pretty much diverse. Maybe not across Europe, but we're a global player, and thus we've got a global customer base. Yeah, and the approaches are different. And you got to be ready for everyone.
Let's switch to something else. As at the IAA, the bicycle is also very important for MAHLE. The MAHLE Smart Bike System successfully offers innovative technology for sporty or very lightweighted, uniquely smart e-bikes. And designing a sustainable drive mix involves more than just evaluating the individual technologies. So how complex is the task for you as head of research?
Well, we call it an approach to micromobility. It's individual mobility, but it's called micromobility. So it doesn't give you an environment like a car, but the propulsion, so bringing you from A to B is the same task but on a smaller scale. That's number one. Number two is we've been looking for innovative products, how to make the user experience even greater. We wanna cause our customers, in this case real end customers, we wanna cause them smiling. Yeah, so there's two approaches. We've got our middle propulsion systems, our middle motors, and we've got hub motors for the rear wheel. And we found a pretty wide customer base already, and we are very, very proud of the outcome.
Can you just give us some short examples of different challenges and how you solve them, the solutions of it?
It's, when we're talking about bikes, it's normally about a weight-power ratio, weight-power balance. It needs to be lightweight, the lighter the better, and the smaller the better. And of course, you've got different approaches within the bicycle brands. So cost effectiveness is the same challenge as in standard automotive.
Let's just talk about the booth here at the IAA a little bit. We've got these exhibition content in the front, which is very interesting, and we've got the Formula E car behind, but we also have an interactive animation. It's about energy, its sources, and how it can be used and stored. Why is MAHLE showing something like that?
We do believe that if you look at the mobility of the future, you need to think about where the energy comes from. Yeah, it's pretty clear that we want to use clean energy, but the energy management at a very large scale is mandatory to think about, and there need to be clever and fresh approaches that then lead to the individual solutions more downstream that basically cause us and our customers to launch our products.
So another topic, I just mentioned it, is motorsports here at the booth, because you've got this Formula E car. So Formula E, electric mobility, is the big topic. How important is motorsports from the point of view of a head of development?
You could call motorsports, well, since like 60, 70 years as a kind of a quick test lab. So we do use motorsports to test our innovations on a very, very quick turnaround time. You basically develop during the week and race at the weekends. Yeah, so you can try, and you've got very, very quick iteration loops for all kinds of products, and you can put them under hard stress and just see what happens. Normally these cycles are 6 to 7 years in traditional on-road cars, and motorsports is just a quick variant of development. That's it.
So can you just give us some examples? What are you testing in Formula E, for example?
You've got an example here, yeah. Of course, propulsion motors, but also kind of electric water pumps, for example. And it's not a secret that the batteries used in Formula E do use immersion cooling as well.
That's right. So, as a developer, you're constantly concerned with the future, right?
Correct. That's my job.
What will our future mobility look like in 10 years? What do you think?
To my view, it will be in 10 years still pretty diverse. Yeah, depending on your personal requirements, you would select a car featuring A, B, C, D. If it comes to range, you might use another car than just commuting between your job and your home. Maybe for a track of 3 or 4 kilometers. So it's very, very much depending on your personal requirements. It won't be combustion engine only anymore, but it would be a pretty large variety. It is again different when it comes to transport. Well, if we're talking personal mobility, you could even be an e-biker in the future. Well, if the weather is right, but it will be a big mix, and that's why we are promoting technology openness, because different requirements require different approaches to our view.
So that's it. Thank you very much, Dr. Martin Berger, for these interesting insights and for your time. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And we've got more talks for you for the next 4 days, but I hope you had some nice insights into the topic sustainable mobility and how MAHLE contributes to CO2 neutral transport. Thank you very much.